Prime Minister will have, week in, week out, had their audience with the Queen and really valued that. They've all spoken about how important that was.
There are 6 former Prime Ministers present, and I think it's the first time we've ever had 6 former living Prime Ministers. It's been such a large turnover, particularly in recent years. But as you say, the weekly meeting is very important to them, because they say they can say things to the Queen they wouldn't say to their cabinet colleagues, or even sometimes to their spouse. And they know that it will not leak, and it's entirely private. No one else is present, and therefore no minute is taken of the meeting. And it does enable Prime Ministers to unburden themselves, and no doubt they benefit from the fact that the head of state has a different perspective on things, and they say, have you thought about this or that? This happened a few years ago, it didn't work out well, perhaps it won't work out well today. And although the King is new, of course, he's got a lot of political experience. He has seen major politicians for many years. He may be able to point out things which occurred before, shall we say, the current Prime Minister was politically aware. And that, I think, is an important part of our system.
The oldest king to come to the throne, isn't he, in British history?
Previously William IV. And just to think, the last time this happened, the Prime Minister was Winston Churchill. Most of the people in the room would have known Queen Victoria. It's an astonishing span of time.
And so part 2 of the Accession Council gets underway. The first time we will see the new king here at St James's Palace. The party of witnesses led there by Penny Mordaunt in her new role, who will start proceedings, the Queen Consort, the new Prince of Wales, and there behind them, King Charles III.
Business for part 2 of the Council. Your Majesty, to make your declaration.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen, it is my most sorrowful duty to announce to you the death of my beloved mother, the Queen. I know how deeply you, the entire nation, and I think I may say the whole world, sympathise with me in the irreparable loss we've all suffered. It is the greatest consolation to me to know of the sympathy expressed by so many to my sister and brothers, and that such overwhelming affection and support should be extended to our whole family in our loss. To all of us as a family, as to this kingdom and the wider family of nations of which it is a part, my mother gave an example of lifelong love and of selfless service. My mother's reign was unequalled in its duration, its dedication and its devotion. Even as we grieve, we give thanks for this most faithful life. I am deeply aware of this great inheritance and of the duties and heavy responsibilities of sovereignty which have now passed to me. In taking up these responsibilities, I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government and to seek the peace, harmony and prosperity of the peoples of these islands and of the Commonwealth realms and territories throughout the world. In this purpose, I know that I shall be upheld by the affection and loyalty of the peoples whose sovereign I have been called upon to be, and that in the discharge of these duties, I will be guided by the counsel of their elected parliaments. In all this, I am profoundly encouraged by the constant support of my beloved wife. I take this opportunity to confirm my willingness and intention to continue the tradition of surrendering the hereditary revenues, including the Crown Estate, to my government for the benefit of all, in return for the sovereign grant which supports my official duties as head of state and head of nation. And in carrying out the heavy task that has been laid upon me, and to which I now dedicate what remains to me of my life, I pray for the guidance and help of Almighty God.
I have with humble duty to crave your Majesty's permission for the publication of your gracious speech.
Approved.
Concerning the security of the Church of Scotland.
I understand that the law requires that I should, at my accession to the Crown, take and subscribe the oath relating to the security of the Church of Scotland. I am ready to do so at this first opportunity. I, Charles III, by the grace of God, of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, and of my other realms and territories, King, Defender of the Faith, do faithfully promise and swear that I shall inviolably maintain and preserve the settlement of the true Protestant religion as established by the laws made in Scotland in prosecution of the claim of right, and particularly by an act intituled An Act for Securing the Protestant Religion and Presbyterian Church Government, and by the acts passed in the Parliament of both kingdoms for union of the two kingdoms, together with the government, worship, discipline, rights and privileges of the Church of Scotland. So help me God.
I now invite your Majesty to subscribe both copies of the instrument, confirming the oath has been taken.
A signature from the new king on the oath that he has just declared in front of the Privy Council. And now witnesses will also add their signature to the documents.
I now invite the witnesses to His Majesty's oath to sign both copies of the instrument.
And that will begin with the new Prince of Wales, Prince William. He will be followed by the Queen Consort, And now those documents are being turned around because there are other witnesses waiting by the side of the platform who will also add their signatures to it. And just to be clear, Robert Hardman, what we're seeing being signed here, this is about the oath to the Church of Scotland.
Yes, this is preserving the settlement of the Church of Scotland. It underlines the sort of difference in the monarch's role with the Church of Scotland and the Church of England. With the Church of England, that will come separately. We just heard there, in relation to this section of the proceedings, there was no reference to the Church of England. This is all about Scotland. Scotland is where, for the next few days, in fact, a lot of this, our attention will focus as the Queen, the late Queen, is brought to Holyrood House and then to St Giles's Cathedral in Edinburgh. This sort of presages a very Scottish dimension to this.
And that was indeed Alistair Jack, the Secretary of State for Scotland, adding his signature now. First Minister Nicola Sturgeon and Brandon Lewis has already added his signature to the document. You can hear the bands outside taking up their place, because shortly we will be going out into Friary Court just outside these windows, where the new king will be proclaimed publicly. The Lord Advocate of Scotland, Dorothy Bain, adding her signature to both copies of that oath.
There we see in the background the private secretary to the King, Sir Clive Alderton, and the private secretary to the late Queen, Sir Edward Young, standing side by side.
And that the Lord President of the Court of Session, Lord Carloway, who is the last, I think, to sign the oath.
Draft of an order in council authorising your Majesty's declaration to be made public. Draft of an order in council for recording the oath relating to the security of the Church of Scotland, to be transmitted to the Court of Session, to be recorded in the books of Sederant, and afterwards lodged in the State Papers of Scotland and in the Council Register.
Approved.
Draft order in council determining the form of proclamation for proclaiming your Majesty in the realms and in the British Overseas Territories.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising the Lord Chancellor to make use of the Great Seal for sealing all things whatsoever that pass the Great Seal, until another Great Seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising the Lord Privy Seal, if need be, to make use of the existing Privy Seal until another Privy Seal is prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Drafts of 3 orders in council authorising your Majesty's principal Secretaries of State, the Lord Chancellor of the Exchequer and the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, to use the existing seals until other seals be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising your Majesty's Secretary of State for Northern Ireland to make use of the existing Great Seal of Northern Ireland until another seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising your Majesty's First Minister of Scotland to make use of the Great Seal of Scotland until another Great Seal of Scotland be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising your Majesty's First Minister of Wales to make use of the existing Welsh seal until another Welsh seal be prepared and authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council authorising the public seals, authorising the respective public seals lately in use elsewhere than in the United Kingdom, to be made use of until new seals be prepared and their use duly authorised.
Approved.
Draft of an order in council confirming your Majesty's wishes in relation to the Sovereign Grant Act 2011 to continue the tradition of surrendering the hereditary revenues, including the Crown Estate, to your government for the benefit of all, in return for the sovereign grant, which supports your official duties as head of state and head of nation.
Approved.
Drafts of 2 proclamations. 1. Appointing the day of Her late Majesty's state funeral as a bank holiday in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. 2. Appointing the day of Her late Majesty's state funeral as a bank holiday in Scotland. And of 2 orders in council directing the Lord Chancellor to affix the Great Seal to the proclamations.
Approved.
I now invite your Majesty to sign both proclamations.
Continuation, wasn't it, of it's making sure there is nothing in the way for this new monarch, that business can continue as usual. The speed of this, though, is quite something, isn't it?
It is something, and I thought in the King's declaration, I mean, he was out of his way to emphasise continuity, that's what monarchy stands for. Everything I do will be following the inspiring example of my mother. He said, you know, irreplaceable, he called her. There was a human dimension in there as well. He talked about his sister and his brothers, but there was business in there as well. Very interestingly, he alluded
That,
to
Your
the...
Majesty, concludes today's business for the Council.
So the royal party leave the throne room there at St James's
May I
Palace.
now invite the deputation party and the witnesses to the oath to exit via the picture gallery and the matted hall. I now ask Privy Councillors present to exit via the picture gallery and the matted hall and invite you to sign the proclamation, which is laid out in the lower corridor. Thank you all for attending today.
And so that is the end of proceedings at the Accession Council, the first time we have ever witnessed what goes on behind closed doors. I was struck, though, watching Prince William, the